The first light of dawn crept slowly across the city, spilling golden streaks across the brick facades and cobblestone streets. The air was crisp, the kind that made you wrap your coat tighter and feel alive in every breath. Aromas of freshly baked bread, roasted coffee beans, and sweet pastries drifted out from the corner of Maple Street, weaving through the morning chatter of the city. This was Lila's Bakery, a small, almost hidden gem in the heart of the city. The bakery itself had a charm that felt timeless. Its faded yellow awning swayed gently in the morning breeze, while the hand-painted sign creaked faintly as it swung from the wrought iron bracket. Wooden racks lined the window, showcasing golden loaves, croissants dusted with sugar, and delicate tarts topped with vibrant fruit. Every surface, every detail, seemed to hum with warmth, as if the very walls carried the love poured into every recipe. Inside, Lila, the heart and soul of this bakery, worked tirelessly. A woman in her late 30s, with warm brown eyes and hair tied loosely with flower-streaked strands falling into her face. She kneaded dough with a rhythm that spoke of years of practice and passion. Her movements were precise yet gentle, the kind that came from someone who treated each loaf as if it were a gift, not just food. Soft sunlight poured through the bakery windows, catching the edges of pastries and illuminating the golden brown crusts like little jewels. A steaming coffee pot hissed gently, curling soft wisps of vapor into the air, mingling with the sense of cinnamon, sugar, and warm butter. The hum of the city outside blended with the quiet bustle inside, creating a sense of serenity despite the city's relentless pace. Then, the bell above the door jingled. It was not an unusual sound. Customers came and went all day long, but today it announced someone entirely different. Marcus Grant, a renowned food critic in his mid-40s, stepped in. His reputation preceded him. Sharp, discerning, and uncompromising, he had the power to make or break a bakery's reputation with the stroke of a pen. He walked with the quiet confidence of someone who knew his own influence, and yet there was an unmistakable air of skepticism in the way he scanned the room. Marcus's eyes, behind round glasses, measured every detail: the arrangement of pastries, the cleanliness of the counter, the faint dusting of flour on the floor. When his gaze finally landed on Lila, she looked up from her work and smiled, a gesture so warm and genuine that it seemed almost to pierce the invisible wall he carried around himself. "I've heard interesting things about this place. Curiosity is always welcome here." Marcus's lips twitched faintly, almost imperceptibly. He gestured toward a display of almond croissants. "That one." Lila carefully placed the croissant on a small plate, handing it to him with both hands, her eyes calm but observant. Marcus took the first bite, and for a moment his expression remained neutral, almost unreadable. The flakiness of the pastry, the delicate almond glaze, the subtle sweetness, it was perfect. Yet he hesitated to allow himself any hint of appreciation. Then, almost imperceptibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. A shadow of surprise crossed his eyes. The croissant was more than technically perfect. It carried warmth, a human touch he hadn't expected. From behind the counter, Lila observed quietly. She had met critics before, many sharper and colder than Marcus, many quicker to judge and condemn. But something about him felt different. There was a tension in his posture, a guardedness in his eyes, but also a flicker of something deeper, perhaps curiosity, perhaps loneliness. Critics often seek perfection. They measure, they analyze, they dissect. But sometimes, perfection isn't what touches the heart. The bakery's door opened again, and a soft breeze carried the smell of winter streets inside, mingling with the scent of pastries. A young boy ran in, chasing a ball, and accidentally kicked a small basket of flour. Powder puffed into the air, dancing like tiny snowflakes before settling on the counter. The boy froze, eyes wide, expecting someone to scold him. The mother rushed forward, her hands trembling as she tried to gather the spilled flour. Lila smiled gently, kneeling beside the boy, brushing flour off the counter with careful precision. "It's okay, accidents happen." She handed the boy a small brush and showed him how to sweep without spreading more flour. Her voice was calm, patient, and encouraging. Marcus watched silently from his table, pen hovering over his pad. He expected chaos, irritation, maybe even embarrassment, but what he saw was compassion. Not staged, not performative, just genuine human kindness. A strange warmth began to stir in him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. As the morning continued, more customers came in. Leela greeted each one with the same warmth, sharing stories of the ingredients, asking about their day, laughing softly at their anecdotes. Marcus continued to take notes, though now his pen moved more slowly. He wasn't just noting texture and flavor anymore. He was noting heart, something he had never reviewed before. He scribbled quietly. Pastry technically perfect, but more than that, there's something here, something human. For the first time, Marcus's mind wasn't focused on critique, but on observation, on understanding, on feeling. He had come expecting perfection, but he found something unexpected instead: warmth, sincerity, and a glimpse of connection that touched a part of him long buried beneath years of scrutiny. Sometimes the most ordinary places hold extraordinary power. Sometimes a warm smile, a carefully baked pastry, or a simple act of kindness can reach a heart that has long been closed. Marcus came seeking perfection, but what he would find here would change him in ways no review ever could. The morning sun had climbed higher, and Leela's bakery had settled into a steady rhythm. Customers moved in and out, carrying paper bags filled with golden loaves, aromatic pastries, and coffee. The warm smell of bread lingered in the air, a comforting counterpoint to the chill of the early winter streets outside. Marcus sat at the small wooden table near the window, his notebook open but barely used. The pen rested between his fingers, poised, ready, yet he couldn't bring himself to write. Something about the bakery unsettled him, not in the bad sense, but in a way he couldn't quantify. The croissant he had eaten earlier, delicate and buttery, had impressed him technically, yet it was the warmth of the place, the way the people moved, and the way Leela treated them that gnawed at him, distracting him from his usual precision. Marcus, internal thought.
This isn't a review anymore. I came to critique, to dissect, but why do I feel unsettled? Leela roved through the bakery with effortless grace, her hands dusted with flour, gently placing fresh pastries in the display case. Every so often, she paused to speak with a customer, to share a kind word, a smile, a little story about the bread. Each interaction seemed to radiate care, the kind of care that Marcus realized he had rarely encountered in any professional establishment. Just then, the bell above the door jingled again. A young couple entered, the woman holding a baby wrapped in a thick blanket. They were visibly anxious, clearly hoping the bakery could provide a little comfort on a cold morning. "Good morning. Would you like a warm pastry?" The woman nodded, grateful, and Leela busied herself preparing a small selection of treats. Marcus's eyes lingered on her, noting how every action, however small, was imbued with thoughtfulness. And then a small commotion broke the bakery's gentle rhythm. A boy, no older than 8, had dropped a container of sugar near the counter. The white powder puffed into the air like a gentle cloud, settling softly on the nearest pastries and counter. The boy froze, eyes wide with fear, expecting anger. Marcus stiffened. He was used to witnessing chaos in kitchens and restaurants and bakeries, but what he saw next caught him off guard. Kneeling beside the boy, calm and gentle. "It's all right. Accidents happen." The boy's mother approached quickly, red-faced and flustered. "I'm so sorry. I don't know how." "No worries at all. Let's just tidy it together." As the mother and child began to clean up under Leela's guidance, Marcus watched silently, something stirring in him he hadn't expected. A pang of guilt, a sense of admiration, and a creeping realization of his own cynicism. "I've written hundreds of critiques, analyzed dozens of bakeries, and yet I don't think I've ever seen this before. She's different. She doesn't bake for recognition. She bakes because it matters to her, to them." The tension in the bakery wasn't the chaos from the spilled sugar. It was the clash between Marcus's internal world and the reality unfolding before him. He was trained to judge, to find flaws, to measure everything against a standard. Yet here, in Leela's bakery, the standard didn't matter.
Kindness, warmth, and the joy of simple human connection were the metrics now, and Marcus was ill-equipped to measure them. Through the window, the winter sun reflected off icy patches on the sidewalk, glinting like tiny stars. Passers-by stopped to watch the scene through the glass, curious about the tiny flour and sugar cloud drifting in the sunlit air. The bakery had drawn more than just customers. It had drawn attention without even trying. Marcus's eyes followed one woman as she paused, smiling at the sight of Leela patiently guiding the boy. He noticed the small nuances, the way the boy's shoulders relaxed, the mother's exhaled relief, the subtle nods of approval from other patrons. Each movement, though ordinary, amplified the emotional resonance of the moment, revealing to Marcus the bakery's invisible impact. All my life I've sought perfection, flavor, texture, presentation, and I thought that was enough. But maybe there's more to taste than the ingredients themselves. Maybe it's the intention behind the hands that made it. Marcus shifted in his seat, crossing one leg over the other. He had an assignment, a review due by the end of the week, a professional obligation. Yet every instinct he had as a critic now clashed violently with the subtle warmth permeating the bakery. I should be writing notes. I should be assessing texture, sweetness, balance. But all I can think about is her hands, the way she cares. Am I being manipulated? No, this is genuine. She doesn't even know I'm writing or judging. How can I possibly... A soft laugh from a nearby customer broke his train of thought. Leela had just handed a steaming cup of cocoa to a young girl who took a sip and squealed with delight. The kind of delight that Marcus hadn't seen in years. The innocent, unfiltered joy that couldn't be faked or staged. And then the final straw, or perhaps the revelation, arrived in the form of a small wrapped package Leela discreetly placed on the counter for a customer who had just left. It was modest yet carefully prepared, a gesture of thoughtfulness and care without expectation. The idea of giving without seeking recognition struck Marcus profoundly. All my life I've sought perfection, flavor, texture, presentation, and I thought that was enough. But maybe there's more to taste than the ingredients themselves. Maybe it's the intention behind the hands that made it. The conflict within Marcus had reached its peak. He had entered Leela's bakery as a skeptic, armed with pen, notebook, and a practiced air of critical judgment. But now his internal defenses were cracking. The warmth, the laughter, the acts of kindness, everything collided in his mind, forcing him to confront something he hadn't faced in decades, the vulnerability of his own heart. At this moment, Leela approached Marcus with a small, delicate pastry wrapped in parchment. "I made this today, just for you. No strings attached." Marcus froze. The gesture was simple, unassuming, yet entirely disarming. He stared at the pastry, then at Leela, then at the bustling bakery filled with laughter and warmth. I came to critique, to assess, to judge. But now I feel something else entirely. Gratitude? Surprise? Something I can't name. He realized that the conflict wasn't external anymore. It wasn't about the bakery, the pastries, or the customer interactions. The tension, the struggle, was within him, between cynicism and openness, between judgment and appreciation, between skepticism and trust. Marcus's hand hovered over the pastry, unsure if he should take it, unsure if he was ready to allow himself the vulnerability of acceptance. Conflict isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, simmering, internal, a tug of war between who we are and who we could be. Marcus came seeking perfection, but the bakery forced him to face something far more challenging, the truth about his own heart. The afternoon sun slanted through the bakery windows, scattering golden light across the polished wooden counters and shelves lined with fresh bread. Leela hummed softly as she kneaded a new batch of dough, the soft rhythm of her work blending with the quiet murmur of the few remaining customers. Marcus sat in his corner booth, the small pastry she had given him resting untouched in front of him. The gesture weighed heavily on him, not because it was complex or extravagant, but precisely because it was so simple and sincere. His pen lay abandoned on his notebook, a silent witness to the battle raging inside him. I came here to write, to assess, to judge. But now every note feels hollow. Every critique feels inadequate. What is this feeling? Gratitude? Something softer. Something unfamiliar. He watched as Leela moved gracefully between customers, exchanging words of warmth, offering encouragement, and celebrating small joys. A little girl giggled as Leela handed her a cookie, and a man at the counter smiled, clearly brightened by the kindness he received. Marcus noticed the ripple effect, her actions spreading far beyond the kitchen. Just as he was taking in the scene, a young delivery boy entered, carrying a stack of freshly baked pastries for a nearby cafe. One tray slipped from his hands, sending a cascade of pastries tumbling to the floor. Marcus flinched, expecting a harsh reaction, expecting chaos. But instead, Leela moved with calm precision. She knelt, gathered the pastries, and handed them back to the boy.
"It's all right." The boy's eyes widened in relief, and he nodded, a small smile breaking across his face. Marcus's chest tightened. He had never seen patience wielded with such quiet authority. "This is remarkable. No one else would respond like this. Everyone else would have scolded him, but she teaches through kindness." Later that day, as the bakery slowed, Leela approached Marcus with a small, neatly wrapped package. The afternoon sunlight highlighted the simple elegance of the wrapping: a brown paper tied with string, a small tag attached with her handwriting. "For the one who notices. I thought you might enjoy this." Marcus blinked, surprised. He had never received a gift like this, especially not from someone he was reviewing. A gift without expectation, without strings, without ulterior motive. He took it hesitantly, the weight of the package heavier than he anticipated. Why does this feel so significant? He left the bakery, carrying the package carefully. The city outside seemed different, brighter, somehow warmer, as if the act of receiving a simple gift had shifted the air itself. Streetlights glinted off the snow-dusted sidewalks, golden sunlight reflecting off windows and lampposts. Even the chatter of passers-by seemed softer, more vibrant. As Marcus walked, he noticed small details: a young woman stopping to admire a mural, a street musician smiling at a passerby, children giggling while chasing their dog through the snow. Each small act of joy mirrored the kindness he had just experienced. The package in his hands felt like a key, an unexpected trigger that made him aware of the invisible networks of generosity and care in the city. And then a thought struck him. If one small act can ripple outward, touching strangers and strangers, what else could this kindness accomplish? He turned a corner and caught sight of a wall painted in cheerful murals, bright colors, abstract patterns, little characters smiling from the bricks. It reminded him of the bakery, of Leela's smile, of the small gestures that had sparked something unexpected inside him. Back in his apartment, Marcus carefully unwrapped the package. Inside were pastries unlike any he had ever tasted: croissants layered with almond cream, small tarts decorated with delicate fruit, and a note that read, "Life is sweetest when shared."
He sat at his desk, staring at the pastries and the words, feeling a strange mixture of skepticism and warmth. Normally, he would have tasted a single bite, analyzed the texture, the balance of flavors, and scribbled his notes. But now he hesitated. Every instinct told him to remain critical, but every emotion urged him to let go, to accept the moment fully. I'm a critic. I dissect, I evaluate, I judge, but this isn't about critique. This is about connection, something I've ignored for far too long. He reached for a pastry, the warmth of the oven's residual scent mingling with the golden light of the late afternoon. As he bit into it, flavors unfolded, rich, layered, sweet but delicate. The taste was exquisite, but it was more than taste. It carried intention, care, and generosity. I can't review this. I can't quantify this. This is something else. The next day, Marcus returned to the bakery, his notebook tucked under his arm, his mind racing. He had planned to maintain professional distance, to continue observing, to write a review as objective as possible. But now he faced a challenge he hadn't anticipated. How do I reconcile my professional skepticism with the undeniable warmth and impact of Leela's kindness? Leela greeted him with her usual soft smile. "Good morning." "Yes, I don't know." Leela's eyes twinkled. She didn't ask why. She didn't push. She simply offered him a freshly baked croissant, the aroma curling toward him like a gentle invitation. Marcus took a bite, and as the layers melted in his mouth, he felt the internal walls of his skepticism crumble. He realized he had been judging not just pastries, but people, intentions, and life itself. And now, in the warmth of the bakery, he faced a profound truth. He had been missing the human element entirely. Word of Leela's thoughtful gestures began to ripple outward. Customers shared their experiences online, not through advertisements, but through heartfelt social media posts about kindness, generosity, and care. People visited the bakery not just for pastries, but for the experience of connection, inspired by Marcus's subtle influence as a critic. Marcus observed the unfolding effect with quiet awe. Each new visitor, each smile, each story told in passing, built momentum like a wave of warmth spreading through the city. He had anticipated professional judgment, analysis, and critique, but instead he had unwittingly become part of a growing chain of inspiration. She didn't seek recognition, and yet her actions are transforming everyone around her, and somehow even me. As the sun dipped low, painting the city in golden hues, Marcus sat alone at a small table near the window, gazing at the bustling streets and wall murals reflecting the community's joy. He held the package from the previous day, now half empty, the pastries a silent testament to Leela's generosity. The tension within him was palpable, between his old self, the hardened critic, and this new awareness of warmth and connection. He realized that the next choice he made would define not just his review, but his perspective on life. Rising action isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the small gestures, the unexpected gifts, the smiles that catch you off guard, that build suspense within our hearts. The golden glow of the city evening poured into Lila's bakery. Outside, snow dusted the streets, glimmering in the light of the city lamps. Inside, the warm glow of the oven reflected on the polished wooden counters, creating a cocoon of warmth and comfort. Lila moved with her usual grace, arranging fresh pastries and greeting the last customers of the day with her gentle smile. Marcus sat in his usual corner booth, the package from the previous day now resting at his side. He stared at the pastries he had sampled, letting the flavors linger on his tongue, not just tasting them, but feeling them, experiencing the care and intention embedded in each delicate layer. His pen lay untouched. For the first time in his life, writing felt secondary. He was not thinking of critique, ratings, or columns. He was thinking of connection, of empathy, of the ripple effect of a single act of kindness. Marcus picked up a small almond croissant, inhaling its aroma. It was simple yet intricate, a perfect balance of texture and flavor. But this time he did not taste it to judge, he tasted it to experience. As the buttery layers melted in his mouth, memories long buried began to surface. The smell of his grandmother's kitchen, her laughter echoing in the small family home he had grown up in, the rare moments of generosity he had encountered in childhood, the countless acts of kindness he had ignored in the rush of his career. I've been blind all my life. I thought my reviews mattered, that perfection mattered. But none of it compares to this. None of it compares to human warmth. Tears welled up in his eyes. He blinked them back, embarrassed, yet he could not deny the transformation stirring within him. It was as if Lila's bakery had cracked open the shell around his heart, revealing emotions he had long suppressed. Lila approached Marcus quietly, carrying a tray of pastries meant for him, each carefully crafted and delicately arranged. She placed them on the table with a soft smile. I thought you might like a few more. Marcus looked up, startled. He had never experienced generosity without expectation, never received a gift without strings attached. He struggled to find words, his usual sharp wit failing him. You don't have to say anything. Just enjoy it. It was in that moment, the combination of her gentle voice, the warmth of the bakery, the golden light cascading across the pastries, that Marcus realized he had been holding himself back for decades, shielding his heart behind skepticism and professional precision. Marcus picked up a croissant, taking a slow, deliberate bite. The flavors were exquisite, yes, but it was the intent behind the pastry, the care, the thought, the generosity that hit him the hardest. He swallowed slowly, letting the realization sink in. He didn't need to critique. He didn't need to judge. He only needed to feel, to experience, to allow himself to be transformed. For the first time in years, Marcus smiled, truly smiled, not for appearances, not for an audience, but from the depths of his heart. He realized that Leela's bakery had done something far beyond baking. It had awakened empathy, joy, and a sense of purpose he had lost somewhere along the way. Marcus. Her kindness, her gift, it changes everything. It's not just pastries, it's humanity, it's connection. And I can be part of it. As Marcus left the bakery that evening, he noticed subtle changes in the streets he had walked hundreds of times before. People lingered longer, smiles were brighter, and laughter echoed more freely. Even small acts, helping a stranger carry groceries, sharing a smile with a neighbor, seemed amplified. Marcus realized that Leela's small gestures were creating a ripple effect, spreading warmth through the city in ways no critic or review could quantify. And now, having experienced the transformation himself, Marcus felt an urgent desire to contribute, to extend the kindness he had received. That night, Marcus sat at his desk, finally opening his notebook. But instead of starting a critique, he wrote something entirely different. Today, I experienced more than pastries. I experienced care, humanity, and generosity that cannot be measured. Leela's Bakery does not simply bake, it transforms. Not just food, but hearts. And mine is among them. Tears welled in his eyes as he reread the words. The act of writing, not for judgment, but for acknowledgement and gratitude, was cathartic, a symbol of his emotional transformation. The next morning, Marcus returned to the bakery, not as a critic, not as a skeptic, but as a transformed human being. He approached Leela, hands empty, but heart full. Marcus, I wanted to thank you, not for pastries, but for everything, Leela. You didn't need to come back for that.
In that moment, Marcus understood that transformation comes not from perfection, but from the intention behind simple acts of kindness. The bakery, the city, the pastries, they were all catalysts for something far more profound, a change of heart. Sometimes it takes the smallest gestures to crack open the hardest hearts, a gift without expectation, a pastry made with love, a smile shared without reason. These are the moments that transform us. The sun rose slowly over the city, spilling golden light across snow-dusted rooftops and streets that had been quietly transformed overnight. The morning air carried a crisp freshness, but inside Leela's bakery, warmth enveloped the room like a comforting embrace. Golden rays poured through the windows, illuminating the freshly baked pastries that glimmered like jewels on the wooden racks. Leela moved with her characteristic calm and grace, kneading dough, arranging pastries, and greeting early customers with her gentle smile. Her presence alone seemed to radiate serenity. The bakery hummed with life, but today something felt different. A subtle shift in the atmosphere, a sense of anticipation, a quiet excitement permeated the space. Marcus entered, not with skepticism, but with a soft, genuine smile. He carried no notebook, no pen, no intention of critique. He had come only to witness, to connect, and to participate in the warmth that had changed him so profoundly. Marcus. Good morning, Leela. Leela. You're always welcome here, Marcus. Marcus took a seat by the window, watching the morning bustle. Customers arrived, families, children, elderly couples, drawn not by fame or reputation, but by the genuine care that Leela poured into everything she touched. Outside the bakery, the city itself seemed to shimmer with newfound energy. Passers-by paused to admire murals on the walls, colorful depictions of community, kindness, and joy. Children laughed while chasing a small dog, couples held hands, and neighbors exchanged warm greetings across snow-dusted streets. Marcus walked alongside the bakery, observing the ripple effect of Leela's small acts of kindness. Her bakery had become more than a place to buy bread. It had become a hub of warmth and connection, a beacon that reminded the city of the power of simple, intentional generosity. Internal thought, Marcus. It's not just the pastries, it's the intention, the care, the thoughtfulness. One person doing small things can spark a change in the world around them. He smiled, realizing that the city had become part of Leela's story, and in turn, she had become part of his. The warmth she cultivated was no longer confined to the bakery. It had flowed outward, touching countless lives, including his own. Marcus returned to the bakery, sitting quietly as Leela served pastries to a small group of children. Their laughter echoed, mixing with the soft hum of the city outside. He realized that he no longer needed to critique, judge, or measure. Instead, he wanted to participate, to contribute, and to spread kindness. He turned to Leela, eyes bright with a mixture of gratitude and newfound purpose. Marcus, Leela, I think I understand now. All of this, it's not about perfection. It's about care, connection, the intention behind what we do. And I want to be part of that. Leela, you already are, Marcus.
Every smile you share, every act of kindness, every moment you embrace intentionally, it continues the ripple. Over the next few days, the city itself seemed to glow with the impact of one person's genuine care. Neighborhoods that had been cold and disconnected now hummed with interaction. Community members helped one another with small acts, sharing food, helping carry groceries, opening doors, offering smiles. Street murals became more vibrant, reflecting the joy and collaboration of the residents. Marcus took small steps to contribute, volunteering at the bakery, sharing kind words with strangers, and documenting stories of generosity in his personal journal, not for publication, but for reflection. I thought my words mattered most, but now my actions, my attention, my intention, they matter far more. And seeing it reflected back in the city, it's life-changing. One snowy evening, Marcus and Leela stood outside the bakery, watching the glow of golden lights across the city streets. The bakery's windows reflected their smiles and the laughter of the patrons inside. I've spent so long seeking perfection, in reviews, in my career, in everything. But I see now that perfection isn't what matters. It's the intention behind our actions, the warmth we give and receive. And when we do that, Marcus, even the smallest acts can transform lives. They looked across the bustling streets, watching children play, neighbors greet one another, and lights twinkle on murals that celebrated human connection, joy, and kindness. Marcus realized fully that he had been changed, not by critique or judgment, but by witnessing and participating in the ripple effect of intentional generosity. Sometimes it takes just one person, one simple act of kindness, one gesture made without expectation, to ignite a transformation that spreads far beyond its origin. Leela's pastries were more than food. They were a vessel for warmth, care, and connection. Every smile, every thoughtful gesture, every moment of genuine care has the power to create ripples in ways we cannot imagine. And sometimes those ripples come back to us, changing not only others, but ourselves. Kindness is contagious. Compassion is transformative. And so, in a city that once moved too fast to notice, the smallest acts of care transformed lives, hearts, and neighborhoods. One person, one gift, one intentional moment can change everything.